A festively decorated skywalk of the Des Moines Skywalk Complex. My name is Lefty. Thank you so much for sticking with us. Thanks to the Fallon Forum and Ed Fallon for bumping us in there. We are here to talk about all things international, national, local, and in your particular neighborhood, which can't get more local than that. Every Tuesday night from 6:30 to 7:30. With me, as always, is my main partner in crime, the good doctor himself, Dr. J. Patrick Bertrosh. Doc, how you feeling today?
Hey, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm glad to be back after my absence last week.
We missed you.
Oh, I'm sure. And, I watched the show on YouTube. It was great. I wish I could have called in. I really would have given you the raspberries on a couple of points. So,
Hey,
be grateful I wasn't here.
I gotta say, if he's listening this week, a special thanks. If I didn't thank him enough last week, to Professor Mark Kendi for coming in on very, very short notice. He'd been out of town all weekend, and then replied to my email really within hours of being on the show, and he was well prepared and thoughtful, and I enjoyed the conversation, and I thought that he had a lot of fair points to make about a very complicated period of American history.
Well, and it was I really enjoyed the show. I enjoyed catching up with it. It was really great stuff.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
So do you want to I don't know if Ed already broke it. Do you want to break the news?
Well, give me a second. As far as being festive, we have the room painted green.
We do.
So that
they don't know that, though.
But so we can put some things up like our Doc and Lefty logo and the rest of that.
Right.
But I have noticed that our chairs are also red. So we should be in the Christmas spirit year round.
I don't like it. I don't like it. I like being in the holiday spirit.
Well, you can be in the holiday spirit.
I'm on the front line.
The rest of us Christians like to be in the Christmas spirit.
I am a rear admiral.
Don't bring the gay issue into this
okay,
already.
fine. I'm a front admiral in the war on Christmas. It's going well. It's going well.
The war on Christmas is going well.
Santa's on the run, and
Rudolph's in hiding.
Rudolph has been in hiding. That's true. We've got everybody. We got the elves.
You just got to look for the nose.
The elves. We would have won this.
Nose anywhere. Let us know.
We would have won this thing if we were that organized. But we got the elves in internment camps, and we're ready to go. We're ready to take on the big guys.
All right. Well, because Ryan's a Christian. Our very own beloved Frank is a Christian.
Yes, he is.
And he can turn your mic off at any moment.
Well, he probably already did.
Well, let's hope.
Anyway, all in jest. Merry Christmas to everybody, and happy holidays to all those who don't celebrate Christmas.
Well, now I'm gonna lead off the show with a shocker, and it is a shocker. Now here we have. I'll give you a little bit of a background. In 2010, I ran for Congress.
Yes, you did.
I met a lot of great people. The Republicans and Brad Zahn did a great job in his campaign.
Super friend of the show. And at the end, he was getting short on money because everybody had already given. It had been it was a 7-way fight for the nomination. Yep.
Basically, the Republicans engaged in their incumbent production plan, and because they didn't want Latham and King to have to square off in 2012. Basically, that's how I read the situation. I could be wrong. That's how I read it. So they really didn't help Brad the way they said they would, and of course, Brad lost. There were a lot of different issues going on and all that, but a good man lost a good race. So Latham gets elected in 2012, moves down here, and then serves just one term, then quits.
Don't bury the lead. What happened? What did we find out just today?
Just today, he said he's going to retire. He doesn't give a reason for it. He says, he was going to spend more time with his family. But the bottom line is here's, Tom Latham, who's retiring, giving us
out of nowhere.
Giving us about 9 months to be able to get somebody out there and get organized and rolling. And, of course, the Facebook, Twitter, Bing, what's the other big one? LinkedIn are all going crazy.
Google.
Google.
You're going to say Bing in front of it. No, I guess they're going crazy for good reason, because it's a surprise.
Right out
now, is he going? I didn't see the announcement. Is he going to serve out his term before he retires?
He's serving out his term.
Okay.
A super friend of the show, Brad Zahn, said he's been bombarded with texts and calls and everything else. He says he's just as shocked as everybody else. This came out of the blue. Joni Ernst has said that, that was a surprise to her campaign as well. And I think it's a surprise to everybody, because this really did no indication. The The problem is there's going to be a bunch of people wanting to run. It's going to be a crowded field. You already have, I think there's 7 people running for Senate at this point
on the Republican side. Yep.
And, of course, Latham has a primary with Joe Grandinette, who's a friend of mine. And we should have Joe on the show sometime. And
I bet he'd be dying to get on now.
Oh, yeah. And then there is Stacey Apple on the Democratic side, and De La Cerda. I forgot his first name. Gabriel De La Cerda is also on the Democratic side.
I believe that. Well, gosh, and Ed just told us too before he split.
I believe that's him. Both
yep, that's right.
Running for Congress.
Yep.
Because Ed's still here, looking over our shoulder, mentoring our show as it could be.
He gave it the Fallon Forum blessing,
Yes.
which means that we're all going to be rolling in cash anytime soon.
The fickle finger of the Fallon Forum. There you go. How'd you like that one, Ed? You like that one pretty good?
Oh no, we're breaking the 4th podcast wall. We got to get back on the topic. But yeah, these are very very local Democratic candidates so far. I hadn't heard about Mr. Grandinette's announcement as far as the primary, but so I have some thoughts as to why this happened, and I have some thoughts as to why it happened now. But I want to hear, you've got your finger on the pulse. Trigger maybe is the more appropriate word on the right side. You got on the right on the Republican side.
Donna Summer now.
Something like that, yeah.
All right. We'll be back right after the break. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Want to thank all of our sponsors for keeping the lights on. That includes Brian Leach and Service Legends. Is that it?
I believe that's correct.
All right. And then Bertrosian Associates and of course Lubinas Law Firm. We'll be back right after the break. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Hey, welcome back to the show, everybody. We're Doc and Lefty. This is Lefty speaking, just in case you couldn't tell the difference between the two of us. Sometimes
oh my
it's
God,
like
that one hurt.
It's like looking in a mirror. Sometimes it's like looking in a mirror. But Doc, we're talking about
only if you grew out your hair and gained about 100 pounds.
We're talking about Tom Latham's surprise retirement. I've got some thoughts on this that I'm curious to know what you think about it, but I want to hear what a real Des Moines District 3 insider like you, former primary candidate, has to say about Tom Latham's retirement.
Well, first of all, Tom is a conservative. Don't get me wrong. But he's much more of a Reagan conservative. And way back when they were called Reagan radicals, but Reagan really wasn't a radical. Reagan was, he was a kind of guy who wanted to get the job done. And through they always do these polls about how conservative or how liberal somebody is. And Latham always scores at least above 80% on just about everything. The problem is he's had 2 or 3 really, really non-conservative votes. He voted for the budget deal. He voted for, I can't remember, but he voted for another thing about the sequester. He voted with John Boehner, who is becoming increasingly unpopular, even more unpopular than even Newt Gingrich when they ran him out of town. And so what happens is you have these votes that he's taken that are very unpopular. When you have Steve King voting on one side and Tom Latham on the other, Tom Latham is going to get the ire of a lot of conservatives. Case in point is Joe Grandinette, who used to be a Democrat but is now a conservative. and is a Republican. Joe actually called me one day and said, "You know what, Pat?" He goes, "What do you think if I ran?" And of course, I told him, I said, Tom Latham, he's going to be tough to beat. And he said, "Yeah, but he voted the wrong way on this last bill. You can't just keep pulling the switch for John Boehner, because from a conservative's viewpoint, he's much like Napoleon the pig in Animal Farm. He got everybody excited. We thought he was one of us, a true conservative. And the more you get to know him, the more you understand he's inside at the table playing cards with the other humans." And that's really how Boehner is viewed in conservative circles. Most of the radio personalities that talk, especially the local ones, really have a disdain for him. And I think that's rubbing off on Tom Latham. And I believe it's, probably at the root of his issue. He's still pulling well. I think that if he ran, he wouldn't have a problem. Stacey Apple and this De La Cerda fella, even though I don't know either one of them personally. Oh, I have met Stacey Apple on several occasions. I want to say that, but I don't know her like I would know, a person on my side of the fence. And the bottom line is I don't think either one of them had a chance of beating Latham. Joe Grandinet, was going to be facing a very uphill battle, even though Joe has a lot of powerful people on his side. And so I think he sees the writing on the wall that when your conservative Christian base turns on you, that's going to be a tough row to hoe. And, and Brad's one time told me, at some point you just get tired of this. And I'm not saying Brad got tired of it, but we were talking about another person who had retired. And he said, sometimes you just get tired of it. And that's what he thought happened to this person. Well, it could be the same thing for Tom Latham. Now, Lefty, what do you think? Well, why do you think it's this is sudden, right out of the blue.
Yep.
I mean, it's not even 2 hours old now.
Well, Doc, I gotta say that your analysis of his relationship with rank and file Republicans, the establishment, and John Boehner, I think, is well taken. And that would have been the first point that I made. It is no secret that Tom Latham and John Boehner are very close friends up in Washington. And John Boehner is about as unpopular with conservatives for admittedly different reasons in some cases as Obama is unpopular with certain conservatives. I mean, they don't like John Boehner at all. I'm exaggerating a lot, but they don't like John Boehner at all. They don't trust him. He can't get anything done without running it through Paul Ryan or Eric Cantor right now, no matter what it is. And they and I think that Tom Latham is seeing a little bit of blowback, and I think that's one piece. However, I don't know Mr. Grandinet. I don't know anything about his politics. He's a friend of yours, and so I'll take your word on his connections and how he's plugged in. But I got to think that Tom Latham is looking at not necessarily the threat of a primary into his political career, but more the personal toll it takes, and the fact that the seat's going to go Democratic now, almost certainly, because he's in a lose-lose situation. He loses if he has to run on the votes that he took, that you very rightly pointed out are very unpopular with the hard conservatives and the Tea Partiers which have really taken over the Republican Party here in the 3rd District, especially in Des Moines. That if he has to defend those votes to them, he's going to lose in the primary. But even if he if he wins through to the primary, he's got a tough re-election against a Democrat, because the conservatives aren't going to come out and vote for him. They're gonna hold their nose and stay home. And which could give the Democrats an upset. He was almost a surefire win. But you're seeing once again this schizophrenia. Don't mean to use a term of art in the Republican Party, where a guy like Tom Latham is not maybe afraid, but is apprehensive about his chances of winning a Republican primary in a district, even though it's been redrawn, but in an area of the state that he has represented for 20 years.
Yes, and that's just the realities of politics. Here's what the problem is. People always talk about Tea Partiers and the conservatives as if we're talking about the staunch core Christian conservatives. And we've talked several times about this. There's a lot of differences. I view myself as a Christian. We've talked a lot about abortion on here and how I think it's a bad deal for, everybody all the way around, especially children and babies. And I will be honest, I do not always vote strictly on abortion. I vote mainly for financial conservatives, because what I've found out is if you're a financial conservative, at some point you will vote against abortion because it's not part of your it's not part of your makeup. And most people that are neutral or the independents really don't care about social issues. They may care privately, but publicly they're going to vote for what is going to get them money in their pocket so they can live a better life. And that is the focus that the Republicans have lost. We're no longer the party of people that want to create jobs. We just follow along with whatever the Democrats do. We're always providing, ever since Obama stomped on us in 2008 and then gave us a pretty good beat down in 2012, Republicans have gone out of the way to provide cover for policies that are terribly unpopular in general with the public, but have given cover to the Democrats. Now we come up on the next commercial break. Do you think we've talked about this enough? You want to come back and visit this again?
I think that this is a perfect segue into the budget deal and what's really wrong with the Republican Party.
All right, great. We'll be right back right after the break. We're going to talk about the budget deal and how the Republicans have screwed themselves yet again. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m.
Petrosian Associates, how can I help you?
Bertrosh and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertrosh, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We thanks for sticking around for this next segment. We were talking about Tom Latham's shocking announcement that he's not going to seek re-election in 2014, and we're going to move on to the budget deal. This mini compromise that the Congress finally did something akin to doing their jobs before they left for a month and a half for the Christmas vacation or winter vacation or whatever vacation members of Congress want to take at this time of year. And so we'll get to that in a second, but I wanted to say one final thing about the timing of this. Doc, do you have any concern about the timing? Is we have only maybe one or two announced candidates for the Democratic side. We only maybe have one. Maybe there's others that we don't know about for the Republican side. But has Tom Latham left the Republican Party with enough notice to get after a campaign, or has he left him in the lurch?
I think he's left us in the lurch. Now, my memory might be faulty, but I remember stomping around in the snow and the slop in January 2000 or December 2009, January 2010, trying to get signatures. Because I think the signatures are either due January 15th or January 30th. I haven't looked it up, but they're definitely due by the end of January. And you have to get somewhere around 1,800 signatures, and they have to be from every from every county. Well, who in their right mind is going to be able to get together a campaign in that short period of time to gather all those signatures? Now, one of the things that Boswell did is he offered people $2 a signature, right? You just come into his office, sign. Show your ID, sign your signature, and out the door you went. And that was a pretty slick thing to do. But the truth is, unless you have an extra $100,000 laying around of your own money to stick in this thing, you're not going to get your campaign off the ground very well. I think on the Republican side, Joe Grandinette's the only one running at this point. And, he's got a campaign manager, he's got a finance guy, he's putting together his county chairs, and he's starting to move forward. And, he's going to be the best position at this point as far as I'm concerned. Of course, Stacey Apple, I don't think, she might have a shot now, but Stacey Apple has had two major things that has been very unpopular. One, this texting law. There's a lot of other things that she could have focused on in the Senate when the budget was going sideways and everything was terrible under the Culver administration, besides texting. So that's one big criticism that she's had to face over and over. And number two, she ran against what I would term a moderate. Now, I don't know if he'd get mad at me about that, but Chris Hagenow, she ran against him and lost. And of course, that's a strike because I think she also lost her Senate campaign to Kent Sorensen. I think that's who she lost to. Now, I could be wrong about that, but I believe that that's who she lost to, was Kent Sorensen. So those are the strikes that she has against her. So I think that Latham has definitely left the Republican Party in the lurch. I think if he'd have come out last summer and said, I'm not going to seek re-election, that would have been plenty of time. Even before Thanksgiving would have been plenty of time. But today is the 17th. You got 8 days to Christmas, and then you got 15 days, another 15 days to the first. People aren't going to want to be part of that. And then of course this budget deal, which is what I really think probably prompted them to do this. Budget deal is very unpopular among conservatives. Lefty, you want to kind of give us some details about this?
The budget, Patty Murray and from Senator Washington and Paul Ryan, the studly, handsome, erstwhile VP from the 2012 campaign on the Republican side from Wisconsin, got together and hammered out a budget deal that funds the government through 2015, avoids two government shutdowns that are scheduled to happen January and October, because that's how we had been governing up until now, and increases spending levels, I think 8% above sequester at this point. I think they went 92% rather than what the super conservatives in the House wanted to do, is to keep the sequester levels exactly the same, and also slash unemployment benefits, on some of that unemployment spending, and did some other things to sort of raise revenue without raising taxes to try and tackle the budget. Now, it's being hailed as this grand compromise, although by all accounts, and even by the crafters of the bill, Senator Murray and Representative Ryan, it's not necessarily, they don't even view it as a grand compromise. They view it as the first step in getting the budgetary process under normal order in the Congress so that we stop lurching from crisis to crisis, which is what we've been doing since 2009. This is the first budget of any kind that's been passed since 2009, which is kind of a big deal if you are interested in the inside baseball wonkiness of congressional budgetary procedures, and because this is the kind of politics we have in 2013. Everybody is upset. Everybody is upset. The conservatives are upset because the spending is too high. The Democrats are upset because the unemployment doesn't get extended. So no one's happy, which means it's probably a pretty good bill.
Well, now, I don't know about that. You can never make a liberal happy. I sit across one every Tuesday. He's never happy. He comes in. Look, hey Ryan, put the face on. Oh,
yeah,
I'm
the one that says that it's okay. You're the one that's shooting it down and says that it cost Tom Latham his job.
No, well, and that's true. But because raising the debt, $62 billion, in the light of how much they've raised it as far as Obama goes, a few $100 trillion at this point. The bottom line is that's a drop in the bucket compared to what they're used to dealing with. But it's still $62 billion you got to come up with somewhere. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is going to be the quote about why they came up with this compromise, both Democrats and Republicans. Because the Democrats are getting smacked around on this issue just as much as the Republicans.
Not just as much. Not even close.
Oh yeah.
Not even close.
Are.
The Democratic members are not nearly as upset about. They're upset, but they're not nearly as upset about this as the conservatives are, because the conservatives predictably are saying, "Oh, you caved. You caved again. Here we go again." The Republicans caving to the Democrats.
Well, but that's what the liberals are saying. Geez, you caved in. This part segues into our next segment about Obama's falling popularity. But this phrase right here is exactly why they came up with this compromise. Ryan acknowledged again that the deal is not everything he wanted and that nearly sending the country over the so-called fiscal cliff, as Congress did earlier this year, which is just a bunch of fear-mongering, would hurt House members facing re-election in 2014. So what they did is they sat down and they went, we better cover our butts for 2014, maintain the status quo, which is what the Republicans have done over and over, and which is why they're losing the support of financial conservatives. And so now they're like, oh, well, we passed our budget. Well, where the hell were you in? Well, rats. Where were you in 2009, 2010, 2011,
That's what
12?
everyone wants to know.
Where were you guys doing? You guys had control of the House in 2011
The Democrats did, yeah.
Yeah. And so why didn't you pass? Why didn't Republicans pass a budget? That's the problem that we're getting at. And so finally, when they're going like, well, you need to pass a budget or we're going to get fired, then they pass one. And they pass one that honestly is terrible. I mean, they're looking at taking away benefits from veterans. That's an awful thing to do. They're going to extend a bunch of different things that, social programs that really don't benefit anybody, and it's one of these things where you just have to stop and go, enough. I was at a political thing with, and heard Matt Whitaker speak one time, and he said it best. And that is, we have created a permanent political class out there. We're not supposed to have a permanent political class. People are supposed to serve, and then they're supposed to get out. And that's not happening. And I think, really what we need is to quit having two parties basically be the same type of party. And I understand you need compromise and the rest of that, but just simply giving in because you don't want the mainstream media to beat you up is not how you move forward, So for me, the budget deficit or the budget talks really weren't a success. I mean, we're going to be increasing even more spending beyond money that we don't have, that we can't produce.
Let me put it to you this way. The Republican Party in the minority and out of power has dictated terms on the budget talks since this president was elected in 2008. All of the talks about the budget have been about cutting spending, raising revenue without raising taxes, even though the cutting the spending is the main issue for Republicans. Those are the terms on which they've been discussing this and negotiating this since 2008, since 2009, when Barack Obama took office. How is that not negotiate? How is negotiating on Republican terms not seen as a win for the Republican Party? The sequester was a huge win. The idea that we're going to raise the level or raise spending limits 8% over the sequester already after they were kept the same from the earlier from the government shutdown. There's nothing done about spending during the government shutdown whatsoever with respect to raising it. How do the Republicans not come out of this feeling like, you know what, we told them that we wanted to drown the baby in the bathtub. We're doing a pretty good job so far because the Democrats are just letting us perpetuate this falsehood that debt and deficit are the number one central present-day problems today with the American economy, which is absolutely not true. Every nonpartisan economist says it's unemployment, long-term unemployment, the persistent unemployment and the stagnation of incomes that's the problem with the American economy. Debt and deficit can be dealt with. They're medium and long-term problems and can be dealt with in the medium and the long term, but we have to deal with unemployment now, and the Republicans have completely ignored that for 4 years.
Well, now, but first of all, I agree with that last statement. The Republicans have ignored it. I just said it earlier in the show. We're no longer the party of creating jobs. Nobody talks about it. We're all talking about abortion, gay marriage, and how bad Obama is. And you can't define yourself and expect to have people vote for you if you're not going to talk about jobs. Remember that one thing we went to the Iowa Faith and Freedom thing? Exactly the same thing. You pointed it out. Nobody said a word about jobs the entire night.
Actually, they did. But they talked about jobs and unemployment, but they said we're never going to have a prosperous country until we get rid of abortion.
Yeah, and you
Rick Santorum said that. Steve King said that. They all said that.
My point is their focus was not jobs. Their focus was social issues. And I believe strongly that you need to have strong convictions with your social issues. But you also need to be able to say, this is how I'm going to create jobs. And part of the problem is people that create jobs, and I'm one of these people, we look at all this debt that's going on. We start wondering how they're going to pay for it. And we all know that the government looks straight at the middle class, which you and I are part of, and they look straight at small business, which you and I are part of, and they crank up the taxes. That's why small business that drives job creation are hesitant to create more jobs, because we really don't know what's going to happen with this deficit. There isn't really a plan out there outside of, well, I hope it'll work itself out. We're just going to keep printing more money. And the problem with printing more money is the rest of the world is starting to see, listen, we can't keep having the Americans as the basis of our economy.
But I'm going to stop you right there, because it feels like you're, first of all, here, I'll just ask you a couple of questions. One, does not this deal to fund the government through 2015 provide some certainty that we're not going to lurch from crisis to crisis, number one? Number two...
Yes. It's straightforward. Yes.
Okay. Number two, when you're discussing... And the question just kind of flew right out of my head. So we'll get back. I'll remember it. We'll get back to it.
Let me expand on the yes.
Go ahead. Yes.
It does. It does create certainty. It creates a certainty that we're going to spend more money that we don't have, and at some point we're going to have to increase taxes, not on everybody, but on certain interest groups that even though they might have some power out there, they're going to increase taxes on middle class. They're going to increase taxes on businesses, and so we're all sitting around, businessmen, going, I just need to stockpile my cash so I make sure that my business is safe. The third thing that comes into this, and this is from a psychiatric viewpoint, when you're given something, unemployment, right? You don't pay for your unemployment. Your boss pays for unemployment. He has to put into a fund. And when you extend that unemployment, great, you still get that money. And because of the rules of unemployment, you can go do a bunch of other stuff. You could start your own business. You could sell things on eBay. There's all kinds of different ways to make money. The problem is 3/4 of people don't get a job until a month before their unemployment runs out. So if you keep extending it, you keep providing an incentive for people not to get a job. I see it in my office every day, several times a day. Well, how you doing? I'm doing all right. Well, how you getting by? Well, I got my unemployment and I'm doing something else. Right? Well, why don't you want to go get another job? Well, I don't want to work. I mean, that's what it is. Why should I have to work? Why? I'm getting unemployment. I'm making my bills. And that's really what the problem is you're providing an incentive for people not to go back to work. And at some point they drop off the rolls, So, and I understand why you would extend it. In my personal situation, there are people that that I love that are close to me that have benefited from it. But these people have also went to school, got a degree, and are now out working. So it's a little bit different than what I see a lot of times coming through, because they actually did a study on this about when people go back to work in the psychiatric journals. Now, we're going to be back right after the break. We're going to talk about Obama's plummeting popularity. And I do apologize because Blake looks like he's fired up, so we might have a pretty good commercial break. We'll be back right after the break, listening to Doc Lefty on webcast1live.com.
Bertroche and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. We are proud to work with military personnel and their families. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertroche, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere. Our licensed mental health therapists provide individual counseling to children, adolescents, and adults, including couples and marital counseling. Visit our website at bertrocheandassociates.com for more information or call 515-334-9484. Our offices are located at 5525 Meredith Drive in Des Moines, just east of Skate North off Merle Hay Road. Isn't it time to talk to someone? Take care of yourself and your family. Contact Bertroche and Associates.
Or maybe Ryan Blake is.
Hey, well, welcome back, everybody. Now we're talking about the budget deal and why the Republicans just can't seem to get behind anything, and that doesn't make. I mean, to me, that's pretty much par for the course because you have a Republican Party that has no idea what to call itself. It doesn't know whether to call itself the Libertarian Anarchists or the Fiscal Conservative. It has no idea what its identity is. It just knows that it's in opposition to everything. So it does not surprise me whatsoever that even their golden child, Paul Ryan, can't get something that has broad-based conservative support.
Yeah, well, the problem is with Paul Ryan is he's really not a fiscal conservative. He came out with this Medicare Savior Plan. I believe we actually had a show on that.
Yeah.
I came straight out and said, that isn't a plan. That plan sucks. And he's even walked it back. Now, as far as unemployment, Blake probably pointed out something very good. You know, you have seasonal workers that depend on that unemployment to carry them through the winter months. That's not really who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people, the massive layoffs that have happened, the people losing their job, and the fact that 75% of these people don't get a job until the final month of unemployment. You know, I'm really not talking about seasonal workers. I'm talking about those that have lost their jobs and really don't have an incentive to go back to get more.
Here's actually, and I was listening to economists on Iowa Press the other day or last Friday, and I don't want to get into a big discussion about. I'm going to the minimum wage. I don't want to get into a huge discussion about that because we talked about the minimum wage. We can have a minimum wage show at some point in the future if we want to have one, because that's the next big Democratic piece that's about to come down the pipe. If Obama's popularity can kind of get up, I think is what's going to happen. But there's an economist out there who is generally against the minimum wage because of its really deleterious effect to unskilled and younger labor. So it hurts younger workers, and the youth workforce gets really hurt by a hike in the minimum wage. But it says that over time, and especially a big jump in the minimum wage from $7 to $15 would be a really bad thing because you'd see a sharp spike in layoffs immediately that would then come back, cycle back around and even out over time. But he said, what he did say with respect to unemployment benefits is that there are economic models out there that show that as minimum wage standards approach the quote unquote living wage, I think maybe 56% of poverty or whatever that happens to be. That's sort of the golden number for Democrats, at least, is if it's approaching 56% of the poverty line, then that persistent unemployment starts to taper off. If you can receive $12 an hour on unemployment, you're not going to go out and get a $7 an hour job. But if you raise that, and this is what this more conservative kind of economist was saying, there is evidence to show that raising the minimum wage brings people off unemployment benefits, reallocates those incomes from the government back to the private sector, which is what we all want to see. I'm not making a big political statement about it, but I'm saying that it's an interesting economic thing to think about, that perhaps minimum wage and unemployment benefits can be kind of addressed in that particular way.
I can see that.
So and that brings me to why the minimum wage and nothing else is going to get passed until Obama gets a win. The Obama administration, this is not just a partisan statement. The Obama administration needs a win right now badly. Badly. They thought that...
So I was kind of confused about your statement. You don't think that they're going to get the minimum wage anywhere near until Obama's popularity starts to come back up?
Yep.
And that they probably need a win somewhere before
they
that
need
happens.
a win somewhere else somewhere. Yep. That's what I'm talking about. You're hearing rumblings about the minimum wage, and maybe the administration thinks that the minimum wage is something that they can latch onto first because, hey, this has broad support with everybody. You can get conservatives who are on the lower income scale to support this, and we'll push it and we'll get a win that way. I don't think that's going to happen, because you really need a big political push. You need to have a lot of energy behind you to get that done. And with the Tea Party Republican, even everybody in government at this point is so unpopular that when you're linking politicians to folks protesting for a living wage at Walmarts and McDonald's, the folks that a large section of the country kind of look at with a little derision, I want to say, then you're lumping them all together and no one's popular. The administration thought that the nuclear deal with the Iranians was going to be its big win to kind of get the ball rolling a little bit with some of these other things. It hasn't been so far. And every president in the second term who has started to see popularity fall off, like Reagan and Clinton and George W. Bush, went to foreign policy. George Bush didn't address Israel or Palestine as a unit until his second term, like deep into his second term. Yes. He was almost out of office before he went there. You don't see presidents do that unless they're desperate to kind of get an easy win, because everybody likes presidents when they're dealing with foreign policy. The Obama administration has tried it so far. It's still too early I still feel like it's too early to tell, but it's starting to kind of seem like the deal is it's strained a little bit. He's got to turn his attention back inward because everybody is looking at him to do things like the minimum wage and immigration reform, and I feel like those two are such heavy lifts that he needs to find an easy win someplace else before those two even get passed.
Yeah, and I would agree. And the problem is he really doesn't understand what he's doing in foreign policy. We've talked about this before. Whenever you go in someplace, you have to have an idea what you want to get out of it. And I'm going to throw this out there, and you can take issue with what you want. He's so narcissistic that, when he's back home domestically, you can make it about him. But when you're doing foreign policy, nobody cares. You're just some other American president mucking around over there. He went to Afghanistan to try to get some kind of deal done, completely out of character. There's a rumor that he's going to do this apology paper over in Afghanistan. He didn't do it, therefore no progress there. Kerry is over there doing this nuclear deal with Iran that most of Europe is just going, man, what are you doing, right? So he really has some foreign policy failures. I would agree with you that he needs to turn his attention back home and go, because that's where he's had success. Mm-hmm. And he needs to keep talking about Obamacare, about, listen, here's some successes we've had. Because all you're hearing is negative stories about Obamacare. Now, I don't know if there's many positive stories out there about Obamacare.
There are a few. I mean, the negative stories are overblown. And if you saw Hannity from last week, you saw Hannity really get his milkshake drank by some people who were pointed out some of the
milk drink,
the falsehoods that he was spinning about the Obamacare failures. The thing that, when I was watching Meet the Press on Sunday, they had Scott Walker, the governor of Wisconsin, on talking about some of the things that he did to kind of help his folks in Wisconsin with their health insurance. And I was chuckling to myself because this is what he was holding up as his pride and joy for how he helped to save Wisconsin. And I think that you hear our governor, Terry Branstad, say the same thing. I denied the state exchange. I denied the Medicaid expansion. But I made it. I opened up the market so that people. I created a centralized area so people could come and buy and look at their health insurance and deal directly with the insurance companies. Huh? That's what you did. That sounds a lot like Obamacare to me.
Yeah.
The health insurance exchanges on the federal website and a lot of the state exchanges like California, New York, and Kentucky who run it themselves are people talking directly to insurance agents through the exchanges to mix and match their plans and to figure out what works best for them. And it's always interesting for me to hear these Republican governors talk about how we'd rather have the federal government run our healthcare system under Obamacare. We don't want to have anything to do with it. We don't want to have any state control because I guess we think the federal government can do a better job than us.
Yeah.
My final point about it, as the problems get fixed, and it's still not popular, and I'm not going to sit here and defend its popularity because it's not popular at all. But I think as the problems get fixed to the website, and more and more people are signing up for it, and if the Republicans' sole strategy, and I've said this to you before, is Obamacare sucks and that's it, it's going to turn out badly for them. They need to be able to diversify.
Yeah, you're right. Now, we're going to be back right after the break. We're going to continue this conversation about Obamacare. Got a couple of texts in about questions about minimum wage and young people. So we'll be back after the break. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. We'll be back right after the break.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life, change your relationships, transform your world.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. I'm just looking at the time, and holy smokes, we have really burned through a lot of issues here, which is great. It's good to have you back so that we can talk about some of the stuff that's been in the news, and we're moving right along. But you said you had some questions about some of the things that we've just been talking about.
Yeah, well, first of all, I agree with your statement right at the end. If the Republicans are just anti-Obama without presenting their own plan, that's not going to work. We've talked about it. You can't just go, hey, you suck, and be done with it. You have to say, you suck, and this is why I don't. That's what you have to do. Now, we had a question, rats, my phone just shut off. But basically it was, does raising the minimum wage encourage young people to skip college? I'm looking at, I did a quick Google search during the break. The three of them I've read, one from the Cato Institute, one from Money, usnews.com, one from Transitions. I don't even know what that one is. And those are the three I read. They all seem to agree. Now, we have the Cato Institute and U.S. News. Now, Cato Institute is a fairly conservative thing. Mm-hmm. But what they're pointing out is when you increase minimum wage, these kids that think it's great making $10 an hour for the rest of their life suddenly go, man, if I'm making $15 an hour, I'm really rolling in it. And the problem is when you increase minimum wage, what you're doing is you're increasing expenses for everybody. I mean, the thing that I heard was it's only going to increase the cost of a burger by 17 cents. Great. That's great. It was just one burger. Great. But you're talking billions of burgers. So the costs are really going to escalate. And that doesn't include the increased cost of French fries, milkshakes, all the rest of that. So what they have pointed out is that, one, not only does it make it so that you're not going to hire young people, but two, the people that do get hired that are young are going to be underemployable. They're not going to go out and get the education because now they have a little bit of extra money, are able to start their lives earlier. It's just like, when I look at my friends, when I was going to college, they were driving Camaros. I was jealous. Oh man, I'm going to college, everything else, they're driving Camaros. But, you advance 20 years down the road. Suddenly, I look at them, they're still driving that same Camaro they had. And I have a different car. So it's kind of a switch off. But the bottom line is, if you can't get into the system in the first place, if people aren't going to hire you, it's going to be difficult to develop the job skills you need.
Well,
that's just what they said on here.
No, and I didn't want to talk about the minimum wage because I hadn't prepared anything.
All right, and that's okay.
But no, I'll respond to what you said because, the Cato Institute has there's some value to the Cato Institute every once in a while, but when it talks about the minimum wage, it doesn't have any sense of the history. Everyone against the minimum wage as a thing argue that it increased the costs of labor, therefore it increased the costs of production, therefore those costs get spread around and it kills employment, but it doesn't. Overall, I talked about two sectors of employment. I talked about the youth and low-skilled employment, and there is evidence that it has a negative effect on those two very small sectors. But as an overall employment harmer, the minimum wage does not harm employment whatsoever. There has never been and I'm talking over like 40, 50 years of employment studies. The minimum wage doesn't hurt it. Number one. Number two. when you're talking about people going, maybe being disincentivized to go to higher education, I would point out that one of the sort of warm and fuzzy memories that folks like to trot out, Democrats and Republicans both, about the American workforce is the guy who graduated, got his high school diploma, went to the factory, and started working at the factory with no college education, starting off at a living wage when he got there because of organized labor. I'm just going to throw that in there for you. And then worked his way up through the company, worked at one place his entire life, was able to put his kids through college, get a 30-year fixed mortgage, drive a decent car, and live the American dream and retire off of that same place. Now, it used to be in this country that you didn't need to go to college to have a decent life. So folks that are, I fail to see how
when you start. Well, what you're talking about is manufacturing jobs.
I'm talking about there used to be a lot of different kinds of jobs like that. Manufacturing, that's an example.
But let's just take manufacturing for example. Then just one segment. That's the one that creates the most money revenues for your state and for your country and locally. The problem is just like Maytag, well, hold on, you guys, your labor costs just got too much. We're going to Mexico. Geez, it's cheaper to go overseas. I have a friend of mine. He developed this. Yeah, I'm sure you've already seen it on the shelves. He developed this thing. It's really cool. Think he builds it here? No, he goes over to China, builds it so it's cheap, so people will buy it. One of the Billy Mays, before he died, he had that show. He kept talking about people would come in. First thing he'd say is, well, we have to reduce the cost of manufacturing. Well, how do you do that? Well, we send it to China. That's what happens. I mean, and that's what happens. Now, I'm going to take the final word on that because we've discussed this. I didn't want to get into this discussion.
Well, and I didn't want to get into the minimum wage talks either. I'm just saying that if you're talking about to address the question, disincentives for a college education, it's not always more money. It's also security. That's all.
This is. The other thing is that's not how people think now as far as what you said about being a long-term job. Stats show young people will change jobs 17 times over the course of their lives on average. Well, that's the new economic reality we have to face. Now, this last week, I've been bombed. And I was ill last week. The last week and this week, I have been bombed right and left with, especially in my office. Well, listen. My insurance has gone up 50%. My insurance has gone up 100%. All these other problems with Obamacare coming out. Whether you like Obamacare or hate Obamacare, there's one central truth, and that is it doesn't do anything to reduce the cost of healthcare delivery. Nothing. It doesn't do anything for tort reform, medication expense, education of the doctors, nothing. The major expenses, it does nothing. It's very similar to this. Geez, I don't have a car. Well, we're going to come in and buy you a car, right? And we're going to give you a Cadillac, and we're going to pay for it. And the guy goes, great. And then the government goes, well, geez, that's still an expensive Cadillac because they haven't done anything to reduce the cost of that Cadillac. It's the same thing here. And the problem is with the Republicans, we've said this, I've said it over and over, Lefty said it over and over, you can't just go, we don't like Obamacare. You have to develop your own program. And nobody's done that. The one person that came closest in the presidential election to coming up with a decent plan was Newt Gingrich. And you see how he got blasted. And it was a very reasonable plan. It was a very reasonable plan. In fact, it incorporated some of the ideas of Obamacare, if you want to look at it. He just got toasted. Obamacare, Will Rogers was on the show a little while ago. Mm-hmm. I didn't agree with him at the time, but he might be right. Roll out Obamacare. Let's take a look at how bad it is and let people vote on that. That looks to be how it's going to go. And I think it's going to be a big impact in 2014 because Obama's just appointed somebody else to try to figure out, hey, we got to make this suck less. So now it's your job to make it suck less. Well, you can't keep doing that. You're going to have to stop and go, we need to take a different approach to this. And so the problem is if it's named for you, Obamacare, it's going to be tough for you to walk yourself back from that. And I think it's going to be something that is going to be a sticking point for him.
If we're talking about anecdotal stories of
anecdotal stories of my patients
premiums
coming in and saying, listen, this is what's going on.
Right. My health insurance hasn't changed. My dental insurance has gone down a little bit. My health insurance went up a couple of years ago by about $5 and stayed the same when I renewed.
Well, the truth is
mine hasn't changed.
Well, mine hasn't changed either because we're a business and we had the option of locking in our rates for 2014.
Mm-hmm.
So ours hasn't changed. But the problem is
I just have insurance for myself. That's all it is, and it hasn't changed that much. Or it didn't change. It didn't change at all over the year, even though Obamacare was being implemented. What we're going to see as the problems get fixed, and as people start signing up, we're going to see it start to work. I don't think that it's ever going to be more. I don't think it's ever going to be more popular than it is, personally, because the Republicans have run a very effective smear campaign. Now, I'm not saying that Obamacare is what would be the greatest thing to have, but it's what we have now, and it's so crazy to me to listen to Republicans talk about how bad it is when they've done everything they can to get rid of it. Oh man, this. I got to dump water all over myself constantly, and now I'm going to complain to you that I'm all wet. That's the Republican argument. And so that kind of inconsistency, kind of split can't stand. Obamacare, the features are going to work, and they're going to keep tweaking it and keep rounding it out
and keep throwing more money, good money after bad after it. You know, I was on I have a couple of things on my Facebook, plus I had the other day when I was on red states, you know, they're up 75% under Obamacare on average. Blue states are up 50%. So it means everybody's up, not just blue states or not just red states like you pointed out, but blue states as well. The other thing is there have been at least 4 different surveys that have come out within the last month. And all of them say pretty much the same thing, and that is 70% of physicians plan to be out of medicine in the next 5 years. About 30% plan to retire immediately or as soon as possible. And the other 40% are basically saying, I have a 5-year plan and I'm going to get out after that 5 years. So the problem is great, you have insurance, now you need to find a doc. And so there's this whole thing that comes together. Now, I hope the Republicans will listen to both you and I, and instead of just crapping on Obamacare, coming up with something else that people can tolerate, that people can enjoy, that will actually reduce the cost of medicine. Now, we've run out of time. I want to thank Blake for showing up again. It's always good to bounce ideas and everything else off him. I want to thank our producer, Frank, who, without him, we wouldn't be where we are.
We'd just be yawning at each other in the parking lot.
Oh, yeah, that's all there is to it. And we want to thank all of our sponsors, Brian Leach, Petrosian Associates, Lubinas Law Firm, Rats, Polk County GOP.
Yep.
They completely slipped my mind. Oh, my goodness. We'll have to make up for that next week. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back next week on... No, we won't. We're going to be on a 2-week hiatus for the holidays, and we'll be back after the 1st. Everybody, Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. From Blake, Happy Holidays overall.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Hi, I'm Representative Tom Shaw, and I love these guys. Both of them.
Love these guys. Get over here. Love both of them.